Okay. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to the COVID-19 Relief and Recovery Committee of the City of Vincent of the 3rd of November 2020. I declare the meeting open at 1 o'clock exactly. I'd like to acknowledge on behalf of the City of Vincent, the traditional owners of the land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. We have apologies from Mayor Cole today, which is why I'm sitting in as presiding member, and we have Councillor Joanne Fotakis joining us as a council member representative today. We have no members on leave of absence, so I'll move on to item 3. I understand that we have received no public statements or questions via email, and I don't see anyone in the gallery. So, and I don't believe we had any public questions taken on notice that needed response. There was none in the minutes. So no response to be provided. That's fine. Item 4, declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest today? Councillors, no. And do we have any applications for leave of absence, CEO? No. Okie dokie. Let's move on to the confirmation of minutes. Can I ask for a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes of the COVID-19 Relief and Recovery Committee of the 6th of October 2020? Moved Councillor Castle, seconded Councillor Fotakis. All those in favour? I declare it carried. We'll move on to business arising. So item 7.1, tenant application for financial assistance from the Western Australian Swimming Association Incorporated. Can I call for a mover and a seconder, please? Moved Councillor Castle, seconded Councillor Fotakis. Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Look, I'm happy with this. We went through some of the finer details of this recently and revised that minimum percentage at which we would consider these applications. I have a question, probably more of a general question that might need to be addressed in the future as to how we think the reductions and cessation of job seeker might affect these applications, because what we may have seen is some of our tenants have been surviving because of the receipt of those. And as that starts to taper off, that we might see a resurgence. So really just looking for some guidance in the future about whether we think that this will be an ongoing process.
The acting manager, I should say, may have some comments in regards to the frequency, but certainly at the moment the calculations include a provision for the JobKeeper, and that's considered in the revenue estimates. So for those businesses that are heavily reliant on JobKeeper, they may well need to reapply to us, and we have those protocols in place should we need to reconsider it. Emily, I'm wondering if you've got a sense of how many of those applications, do you have a sense that it was greatly dependent on JobKeeper?
I would say so, for a fair number, especially the sporting clubs. Having said that, some are moving into their season now, such as swimming WA. I would actually expect to see some improvement in their finances, but other clubs such as the football clubs, including East Perth, have indicated that they may well need to apply for more assistance. And of course, they're coming off season. So yeah, it will be interesting to see how that plays out over the next couple of months. And obviously the extended emergency period to 28th of March means that they can still apply for the next 2 quarters.
Great.
Councillor Fotakis?
No questions, thank you.
I just had a question in relation to the total amount of assistance that's been provided. The report identifies that the least payment waivers provided by the committee since 1 April 2020 totals, if this is granted, approximately 95k, and just wanted to check how that's tracking in relation to our estimate for this financial year for category 1 and category 1 to 3 tenants.
I'd like to take that on notice in terms of the specific numbers, but I'm confident that we are within the budget provisions, and I would expect that we're slightly below, but I'll confirm those figures.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Castle, anything further to close debate? Okay, I will put it. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. The next item on the agenda, item 7.2, is an update with the Leederville Gardens Trust funding. Can I call for a mover and a seconder for this item? Moved Councillor Fotakis, seconded Councillor Castle. Councillor Fotakis.
Thank you. Through you, Councillor Gondaszewski, I wanted to ask the question. There was some notations in the report about being a lower than expected uptake, a change in the type of foods that may be delivered, and the risk of non-residents accessing the services. I just want to get some further commentary in terms of what we know about how much of the services that have been delivered through Food Bank have been accessed by City of Vincent residents and homeless individuals, and how the staff actually see that changing. Also, there was a notation in a change in being able to supply organisations delivering services within the City of Vincent, and how they saw that influencing the overall consideration against other grants that have been approved to other organisations.
Yes, through you, Chair. So with regards to the food bank grant, you'll recall that initially we agreed that they would prepare food hampers in particular, and that would be made available to individuals who had food shortage issues. What we required was that it needed to relate to residents. We were quite specific. And I suppose we provided a little bit of latitude if it related to someone who was homeless. Obviously, by definition, they can't live in Vincent. But if we felt that they were proximate to Vincent, this was their abode, then we were fairly relaxed about that. What Food Bank has found is with our intent when we set out with this grant hasn't really manifested itself. So they've had very low levels of requirements, and in their discussions with both individuals and service providers, they've found that that's not really where the need is. And so they have asked whether they can amend their grant as detailed in the report to have a little bit more flexibility, still to respond to food shortage issues, but to have a little bit more flexibility as to how that's rolled out. And then also to their request being that they could coordinate that with other third-party agencies who operate within Vincent. One of the things that they were saying was while the services themselves may be provided in Vincent, they couldn't guarantee that the recipients were necessarily from Vincent. So they asked that that be articulated. So, we did note there, because that was quite a significant variation from our initial grant terms, I thought it warranted coming back to the committee to seek your input and I suppose to formalise an approval rather than us continue from there. And I suppose I also note that we are winding up an existing food service for people who are homeless, currently delivered by Manor in the World Square district. So potentially this can be one of a number of services that can help to supplement that need if it's found to be there. If we decide not to proceed with this grant amendment, then we would effectively wind up that grant, and we would have the funds remitted back to the city. So it needs to be, any expenditure needs to be based on the terms of the grant.
Thank you. And through the chair, I just while you broached on the issue of World Square and the recent decision by council, I did want to refer back to council's intention was to really transition that service, but really not seek a complete cessation of services provided by Manor. So I just really want to get some more clarity about where you see this sitting and current activities by council staff to really be able to meet that intention of that decision by council just recently.
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, I agree. It wasn't intended to completely supplement the services by Manor. That was really there for noting. Each of these different service providers needs to make their own declarations to the city with regards to their service and to substantiate that in their returns. So I sort of see this as being, once again, another supplementary service that is there in the marketplace providing this support, and they will need to substantiate that it's meeting the needs of the grant. It could well be that when you look at the total net across all these service providers, that the volume is still the same. It just may be getting picked up by different service providers in different ways. But certainly the Food Bank feels that that they do have participants that they feel they can tap into who will meet the requirements of the grant, aside from what Manor is doing.
I'm just going to wait for comments by my fellow councillors and to see with the further comments whether a closed debate.
Councillor Castle.
Thank you. I had a couple of questions. Firstly, the report refers to an extension as well as the variation, and I'm just wondering, do you have a particular date? But I couldn't see that reflected in the decision or the recommendation or the report.
Yeah, through the chair, I apologise if that is an omission. My recollection is that it was a request to extend it through to December 2021.
December 2021.
Correct. So
end
of next
14
year.
months. Yeah. Okay. And I guess the other questions I have are in relation to the original decision of council that these grants or these applications need to be for relief that relates to COVID-19, and that we are sort of moving a bit further away from that. Do you have any information from Food Bank about this different need that is presenting, whether there is a connection to COVID or whether that is more of an ongoing regular need?
Yeah, through the chair, I gave that quite a bit of thought in coming back to the committee, because it is a bit of a dilemma. I suppose there's two ways to think about it. This is obviously an existing need within our community, and it's very difficult for us right now to draw that direct relationship to COVID because our levels of impact have been so low. And when I went back to the intent of the committee and the grants, probably the only way that I could argue it to our satisfaction is that we are looking at not only responding to COVID, but making sure that we've got those support services in place should COVID arise, or, you know, should we actually have, we are still in a state of emergency, and should we actually have a refresh of COVID conditions, we know that this safety net of provisions exists within the community, rather than us needing to gear up and respond to it from scratch. So, but I acknowledge that it is a bit of a long bow in terms of what our initial intent was. And so I suppose I would say if we were to proceed with it, it would be on the basis that we are comfortable that it is providing a safety net condition and in a state of emergency period, and that we are satisfied that that is the purpose of it.
Thank you. I think that I can see that point, and I think that given, you know, other decisions that have been made recently, I'm comfortable with extending this in this particular way. But I do think we do need to be very mindful of understanding where that impact of COVID has related. As you say, we are still in a state of emergency, and while the general public of WA might feel like we're acting like COVID's all over for us, we know that that's far from the case, and that it could easily be back on our shores within a few weeks. I just had one more question, which is probably just a point of clarification. The report refers to administration seeking support from the committee to present a recommendation for approval to council, but the recommendation is for us to approve it. So I just wondered if that was just an error, or whether you do intend to bring this to full council as well.
This is probably a technical issue, but my understanding, and it could be just that I've made an error in how I've crafted it. So I was thinking the committee is referring it to council for approval, but I think if I go back to the original delegations, I think the committee has the authority to approve it, doesn't it? So probably as the recommendation stands, reflects the current delegated authorities of the committee, and how I've worded it in the report is incorrect.
Thank you. That's my understanding as well. But yeah, it's good to have that clarification. That's all for me.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions in relation to the change of scope. So, and this just follows on from the questions of my fellow councillors. I think I understand that there's the request to change from the hampers and frozen meals option to being able to distribute a range of other products in line with what is best suited to the community members, the vulnerable community members that are trying to be served. No issue with that. I think obviously looking to work with the City of Vincent to communicate and encourage to ratepayers that are experiencing financial hardship that they have a service to avail themselves of. I think that's fine. I guess the change around the residents only to servicing the organisations within the city that are working within the city without restricting it to residents only, my apologies, just how that fits with the overall terms of the trust. My understanding was that the terms of the trust were for the distribution via public benevolent institutions for vulnerable members of the community. And if someone might have that to hand, I can had my conversation out until then, but it would, I guess that's probably we've been quite strict in relation to the disbursement of these funds to ensure that our decisions are not in conflict with the overall terms of the trust, which is completely appropriate. And my understanding was that restricting to residents was around trying to meet that provision around vulnerable members of our community. I might have to have a quick look at my notes. Does the acting executive manager have any information that she can perhaps provide, or the executive director?
Through you, Chair, just to clarify, to comply with the terms and conditions of the trust, the council just needs to disperse to a PBI the parameters around how council wants to assess those criteria really reflect the terms of reference for this committee and decision making on how to channel it. So as long as the funds are going to a PBI with a link to the City of Vincent, we're in compliance with the Leederville Gardens Trust requirements. How council and this committee specify the decision making to those PBIs is a matter for the committee.
Thank you, CEO. That's very useful information in this decision for me. Yes, I think in light of that, I think that the change in scope from restriction to individual residents to the services that are operating within the City of Vincent and servicing both residents, but also potentially some non-residents that may be part of the client base of that PBI is appropriate. I guess from a data perspective, it would be probably useful to get an understanding though, to ensure that the primary use of the funds is still being directed to City of Vincent residents. I wouldn't want to see them all expended and not have a single resident from Vincent actually having been able to avail themselves of the food relief offered by Food Bank. Just wondering if there is any thoughts in relation to how this change in scope. I note that the correspondence from Food Bank talks about a complete list of options will be provided and agreed to as part of this arrangement. Is perhaps that something that could be fleshed out a little more in that discussion?
Yeah, through the chair, we do have requirements for each of these charitable bodies to provide us with a report back, and I can define that they need to provide us with some data with regards to the number of Vincent residents. That's not an issue.
I think the other thing is they've talked about an extension of time to December 2021. I'm probably not as on board with that at this stage, given the lack of information around being able to ensure we're servicing Vincent residents. I know we're ensuring that we're servicing the organisations, charitable organisations operating within the city, but I think that we would $178,000 is not an insignificant amount of funding, and so my preference would be to retain the original end date. I'm just thinking about wording of an amendment. So I think what we would want to do is, if there was a view towards considering an amendment in relation to item 2.
Can I, as the, I suppose, the original mover of that, would that not require on point number 2 removal of the words extension and?
That sounds very sensible for Councillor Fotakis. Are you putting that as an amendment? Moved Councillor Fotakis, seconded Councillor Castle. All those in favour? Declare it carried. Back to the substantive. Yes, I don't think I've got anything further to add. Councillor Fotakis? Sorry, just before you close debate, Councillor Castle would like to ask a question.
Thank you. Just given that amendment, I just want to confirm that while we might be varying the terms, that the Food Bank, if they are unable to satisfy that grant within the existing time frame, they can bring that either potentially back to our last COVID meeting next month or to full council if they might still require an extension, but perhaps can be encouraged to provide more Vincent data to support that.
CEO?
Through you, Chair. I've just pulled up the original council decision from 30 March, just around the language around residents or individuals in terms of establishing this mechanism. And the council decision was around allocating of up to $1 million of the Leadville Garden Trust Fund from those for the provision of urgent relief of people in need as a direct or indirect consequence of the conditions imposed by COVID-19. It wasn't specific about residents or individuals, but the report in the background did go on to note that it would be about individuals within the City of Vincent. There wasn't strong direct language around residents. The important criteria is around PBIs operating within the City of Vincent. So I think there probably would be some discretion from council, but importantly, we would make sure that there was that strong link to individuals residing in or residents of the City of Vincent.
Thank you, CEO.
I was just going to say, through the chair, just to respond to that last question, I'll confirm that I'll go back to Food Bank, and if they're unable to deliver the grant within the existing timeframe, then we will revert that back to the next committee meeting or council meeting as appropriate.
Councillor Fotakis.
Well, that's all from me. Just as long as my fellow councillors are satisfied that that the majority of those funds will be indeed spent on City of Vincent residents, I'm happy to go straight to vote.
Well, your fellow councillors are unable to speak on the matter and will just have to raise their hand or not in the vote. So the recommendation as amended on item 2 is to approve the request from Foodbank WA Inc. for variation to the terms of the Leederville Gardens Trust COVID Relief Grant Agreement as detailed in this agenda paper. And the other items remain the same. All those in favour? Declare it carried unanimously. Item 7.3, we're up to the COVID-19 monthly update. Can I call for a mover and seconder? Moved Councillor Castle, seconded Councillor Fotakis. Councillor Castle.
Thank you. I just had a question around the arts relief report. In the last meeting, or perhaps it was straight after that, I requested an update, and I thank you for the information that has been provided. I think what I had in mind was a bit more detail on every project that has been approved, just so we've got an idea about how all of them are progressing. It's something that we are getting with the applications for Leederville Garden Trust, so it would be great to see that for the next meeting if we could, and particularly if there have been any variations or perhaps artists that can't complete the project as approved. It would be good to know that, and just because that will help us to move forward to the next stage with this money. Thank you.
Through the chair, the arts officer has got a presentation which provides a more detailed update if the committee would like that to be presented today.
I'm certainly happy to hear it, Councillor Fotakis.
Yeah, definitely. And
that would be great.
Yeah, I also did want to add on that there was a recent update to the Arts Advisory Group. The minutes were incomplete in that regard. So once they've been amended, that should provide additional information through to council members as well.
Thank you. Perhaps we can move to the presentation then. While we wait for the presentation to be set up for viewing, Councillor Castle, do you have any other questions? Councillor Fotakis, do you have any questions you'd like to have
Councillor
addressed?
Castle stole mine.
The CEO has something he'd like to enlighten us on.
Through your chair, this report was prepared prior to the announcement by the Premier and the State Government around the proposed changes on intrastate travel from 14 November. Mark could ask the manager just to comment on that. We don't see any direct implications for us other than there might be greater numbers of visitors and travellers to the City of Vincent when those flights come on track, and that leading up to Christmas as well. So there might be an increased level of activity and movement in and out, but we're essentially in the state government's hands around those restrictions. Mark, did you want to comment at all on that?
Through you, Chair, I guess the COVID situation is an evolving situation, and as these restrictions start to unravel, particularly around the border and even the changes to phase 4, it's just a reminder to us to be vigilant and to really utilise the systems that we've put in place as the city to manage COVID-19 and also to be a really strong advocate for the general public health messaging, and to really reflect that within our operations and the way we communicate with our stakeholders as well.
Councillor Fotakis.
Through you, Chair, I've just got a question. There has been discussion, particularly with the hospitality sector, on the arrangements for check-in and recording of information and the use of QR codes, which sort of makes sense. It's being applied in other states and may be an easier option for our various food and beverage and entertainment venues. We got any of an update or a particular view on the use of QR codes?
Yeah, through you, Chair. I think that's a really good question. I was having a conversation with some of my team earlier, and I really think that traceability is something that we really need to advocate for strongly within the city, and QR codes is one way of managing that. I think now that we've been in this lovely state of feeling very comfortable within Western Australia, and it's almost like life's back to normal, and it's quite challenging with the normal public health messaging around physical distancing and hand sanitisation, things like that. I think people are a little bit desensitised to it. So I think some really good systems, supporting systems around traceability are really good. We're definitely advocating those with our local events industry. Not that there's been a huge amount of demand, but that's also something we can consider with our local fixed businesses as well.
Shall we move to the presentation on the Arts Relief Grant update?
Okay, I'll try and move through it quite quickly. I've got some pictures from the Arts Relief Grant projects that have already finished, which is RTRFM's The View From Here series. So they did 4 of these with local musicians in various spots around Vincent. They're all complete and available on the RTRFM website as well as the city's YouTube channel as well, and we've been promoting them on our Facebook page. Joy Collective's mural is complete. That's on the corner of Fitzgerald and Bosley Streets in North Perth. Such a great opportunity. We had a mural there that was damaged beyond repair, so it was a great opportunity for us to be able to replace it. And it's got some really good feedback from the community so far. Jazz Picnic in the Park with the Perth International Jazz Festival is happening this Sunday. It's a whole afternoon of free music through our grants and also co-sponsored by Lottery West as well. Maddie Godfrey's poetry workshops online are coming up during November, so we've started promoting them. We've got posters and flyers around and promoting on our social media. The results of that will also be going in the Lightbox Laneway probably in February. The rest of them I don't have pictures yet because they're all in progress, so I've just put an update against each. To summarise, they're all in progress. Most of them are in development. We're finding locations for a couple of them, including Pip and Pop's exhibition. We've got a good lead on an empty shop that might be a good fit for that. And we've got landowner permission for that one. Yeah, sure. Okay. Jennifer Jameson's, that's the neon sign with the performance sessions. Currently trying to find a spot for that in Central Leederville because we think it's a good fit, but it will require an MOU with the building owner. So we're just, seeking that wall at the moment. Nunzio Mondia's project is absolutely huge. They've been doing a lot of work on it, gathering interviews and footage. They're going to start composing the music, I think, during November and December. And they've been working quite closely with our local history centre as well. Rolly Skender and Kate Ray's sculpture, that is in development. I'm meeting with them next week to look at a couple more locations that are possible, but we've been working with the RAP working group a lot on that to make sure that the location for that's appropriate. Paula Hart, we've just put her in contact with a couple of local community groups that are going to be doing the workshops with her. Once the workshops are complete, she'll be making the actual sculptural piece, and she's got her eye on a spot in Mount Hawthorn that we're going to go and look at on Friday. Leah, she has recorded her EP and completed the video portion of the project, making a kind of behind the scenes video of her EP recording. That's almost finished, and I'm just talking to her about performance opportunities. We're looking at Hyde Park and also hooking her up with a couple of the other Arts Relief grants as well. There'll possibly be a poetry and music performance at the same time. The video game, they just sent me a preview of it this morning, but I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. But we got a good lead about a video game festival, just a small event that happens every month where people present their new video games, hoping that they can be included in that. The Mighty Raw Football Theatre crossover project, they have requested if they could realign that just for the outcome to happen at the start of next football season. So they're doing a couple of development sessions starting in late November, but the final product will be early March next year. Short film is filming in December. We've secured inclusion of that in a couple of festivals next year, including Revelation and a WA short film event. Jane's oil paintings are in progress. We've scouted out some locations. I think they'll be temporarily displayed in the library and in some cafes across North Perth. And then we're just investigating where will be the final permanent location for them. Liz Gray is partway through making her copper cutouts that she's painting on. It's looking like they're going to be installed in the admin building, either in the foyer or upstairs on the mezzanine. And then Sarah with the mask for the big blue head. That's the only project I was a little worried if it was going to happen, but we've been discussing with her this week. And after speaking to the Arts Relief Working Group, it's looking like we're going to align it with either the first anniversary of COVID, so put it up in March sometime, or at the beginning of winter next year as a kind of reminder to everyone to stay safe. We have the Arts Relief Grant website. It should be launching any day now. It's going to happen at the end of last week, but there are a couple of little bugs in it. That will have a profile of all the artists and their projects, their previous works, as well as some blogs that we've written as well.
Would you like to see the website? Or I can email it through to you.
Yes, the link would be great. Thank you.
And then we've struck a sponsorship deal with RTR FM as well. So we have an agreement with them over the next 7 months or so. It's going to be a lot of the Arts Relief Grant content. They'll be doing interviews with some of the artists, and we've got ad spots as well to advertise the events and projects coming up. We've also got a photographer and videographer who's looking after all 16 projects. So she's providing us with photos as the projects happen, but at the end of all of them, she'll also create a 2 or 3 minute summary video showing all 16. There's just a little play button down the bottom there. This is the time lapse of the mural. Oh, did it happen? No, maybe not. Anyway, it is our Facebook page banner at the moment. That was about it.
Thank you very much. Any further questions from councillors? Councillor Castle?
No, thank you though. That's exactly what I was looking for. It's really good to see how everything is progressing. So I look forward to seeing them all when they're finished.
Thanks, Tegan. I've had the pleasure of seeing that before, and it's fantastic to see it even progressed in just a week and that further contact and follow-up. So thank you. Just want to get an idea of percentage of the funds that have gone out. If we've got a, I suppose it's very difficult with these to know on completion, but what sort of percentage of that 151,000 might actually be completed this year, first quarter next year, or the such? Have you got any indication?
Through the chair, in terms of the actual funds, most of them have been sent out. With the arts projects, we generally have to pay the money up front so that they can begin the project. I think there's only 2 projects I'm waiting on the invoice for, so it would be around 130 that's gone out already. In their contracts, they have to have the project completed and acquitted by end of financial year, but I think most of them would be done by, say, the end of March.
Thank you very much. Do any councillors have questions about the broader monthly update or comments? Councillor Batagas? Okay, thanks. I just had a question in relation to the follow-up on the discussion around town centre cleaning services that was due to be discussed with infrastructure, environment and the place management teams. That's currently sitting as sort of an outstanding action. And I think the last update was written 12th of October. So I'm just wondering if that's been discussed. How's the, place management? Yes, I'm very happy for.
So, through you, Chair, we've had discussions, but we have not come to a conclusion about a way forward. I think Andrew could probably make a comment about what's possible, but those discussions have been started, but a conclusion has not happened yet.
Yeah, thank you.
So through you, Chair, the only thing I'd add is that part of the budget review, we've asked for additional funds to undertake some more town centre cleaning. So we'll get some more information on that. But that's definitely been put in the budget with the expectation that, it could happen.
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to note that it's disappointing we were not successful for RAC grant funding, but it's really great to see that other grant opportunities are being explored. I think that obviously there's lots of other funds out there, and it's something that council has talked about for a long time, is making sure that as part of our standard process we do look for what's available. So try again is probably all I'm saying, and thank you very much for putting that forward.
Yeah, through you, Chair, I think it's really about understanding what that criteria is for all of the grants. So I think we're really starting to get our head around how we need to phrase our projects to get a tick next time.
Excellent. I think that was it from me. Sorry, I'm just going to go through. Yep, that's all I had. Councillor Castle, do you wish to have it to close debate? I'll put it. All those in favour? Declare it carried unanimously. Okay. As presiding member, I have no announcements at this time. Is there any general business that anyone would like to raise? No. We have no confidential items to consider today. Our next meeting will be on the 1st of December 2020. And at this stage, we just have the COVID-19 monthly update on the agenda. There being nothing further, I'll close the meeting at 1:40.